The first time my mother admitted why I wasn't invited to Thanksgiving, she sounded almost apologetic, not apologetic enough to change her mind. I had called because everyone else had already mentioned travel plans in the family group chat, and my phone had stayed silent. Did I miss something? I asked. There was a pause. Then she sighed. It's your brother, Adam. I waited. He's bringing his girlfriend to meet the family. That's nice. Another pause stretched between us. He doesn't want you there. I laughed once. Mostly because I thought she was building toward a joke. She wasn't. He thinks your job would embarrass him. The words landed strangely, not like a punch. More like something heavy settling onto a shelf that had been bending for years. I understand, I said. She seemed relieved. I'm glad you're being mature. After we hung up, I sat in my truck for a long time before driving to my next service call. I worked as a commercial building maintenance supervisor. The title sounded ordinary because it was. My days were filled with boilers that refused to start, elevators that trapped impatient office workers, burst pipes at impossible hours, and inspections that nobody thought about unless something failed. My hands usually carried small cuts. My boots rarely stayed clean. I liked the work. Buildings stayed open because people like me solved problems before anyone noticed them. Apparently, that wasn't impressive enough for Thanksgiving, so I worked through the holiday weekend, not because I wanted to avoid thinking about my family, because broken buildings don't care about family disappointments. Late Friday morning, I received an emergency call from the regional courthouse. Their heating control system had failed overnight. Without repairs, several courtrooms couldn't operate safely. When I arrived, security already knew my name. One of the deputies waved me through. Glad you're here. I spent nearly 3 hours inside mechanical rooms older than I was. Eventually, the system came back online. As I packed my tools, someone called my name. I turned. The chief facilities director walked toward me with a woman beside him. We've been looking for you. He smiled. I wanted to introduce someone. The woman extended her hand. I'm Natalie. Then she stopped, her expression changed. It took me a second, then I recognized her. She was standing in one of the Thanksgiving photos my cousin had posted online, Adam's girlfriend. She looked from me to the facilities director. You know each other, he answered before I could. I'd hope so. He laughed. This man has saved us more times than I can count. He pointed toward the building around us. When something critical fails, he's the person we call first. Natalie looked genuinely confused. Adam had apparently told her I fixed broken toilets. I suppose technically I had, among a few thousand other things. The director kept talking. He also coordinated the emergency repairs after last winter's pipe failure. Without him, we'd have shut this building down for weeks. Natalie asked quietly, You're the supervisor? I am. She nodded without saying anything else. Before leaving, the director shook my hand. We appreciate what you do. Simple words. Public, unforced, then they walked away together. I didn't think much about it afterward. Until Sunday evening, someone knocked on my front door hard enough to rattle the frame. My parents stood outside, my mother looked angry, my father looked exhausted. What did you tell her? Mom demanded. I don't know who you mean, Adam's girlfriend. I answered her questions. She's furious. I stayed quiet. My father finally spoke. She says Adam lied. I didn't tell her that. Mom folded her arms. She said you never bragged. Everyone else did. I frowned. What? Apparently the courthouse director spent 10 minutes talking about you. I almost smiled. He was being kind. Mom shook her head. No. She looked away. He said they trust you with buildings that affect thousands of people. Silence settled between us. Finally, my father asked something neither of them had ever asked before. What exactly do you do every day? So I told them, not to impress them, simply because they had never really listened before. I explained inspections, emergency planning, life safety systems, teams of technicians, preventive maintenance, responsibility, the work itself. When I finished, My mother sat down on the porch step. I thought. She stopped. I don't know what I thought. You thought blue collar meant less. She didn't deny it. Instead, she whispered, Adam made it sound that way. He didn't invent the idea. That hurt because it was true. For years, every holiday conversation drifted towards salaries, offices, promotions, titles. Nobody ever asked whether I liked my work, whether it mattered, whether I slept well, knowing I solved real problems for real people. My father stared at my work truck parked beside the driveway. I've driven past buildings you've maintained. You probably have. And I never realized. No. He nodded slowly. I guess we never asked. The anger that had brought them there had disappeared. Not because I had won anything, because there was nothing left to argue with. Reality had quietly replaced assumption. Mom apologized before they left. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't enough to erase years of looking past me, but it sounded different from the apologies people give, just to end uncomfortable conversations. Adam called 2 days later. I let it ring. Some conversations need time before they deserve an answer. Thanksgiving had shown me something I hadn't understood before. The hardest part wasn't being excluded, it was believing I needed an invitation to prove my worth. I didn't. I had already built a life that stood on its own, whether my family recognized it or not.